All right, we're live. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm here with Shah from New Jersey, and today we're going to be talking about what the post-pandemic association might look like. And this could cover a lot of different topics. But Shah, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and let's give us your insights on kind of in a big picture how you see associations pivoting after this pandemic hopefully ends soon.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shah Perry. I am the Director of Communications and Government Affairs at the New Jersey Restaurant and Hospitality Association. Thank you, Lex, for having me, by the way. I see multiple ways that associations will be pivoting post-pandemic. One of the things that they're going to pivot by looking at the lost members that they've lost temporarily or permanently. Of course, we're not going to know who we lost permanently until after all the restrictions are lifted and everyone's consumers' confidence has been fully restored. The way that they would do that is they're going to look at digital options. Of course, right now we're live streaming from the StreamYard platform. So a lot of the associations are using platforms where you can go from one platform and stream onto your social media platforms. So you're reaching your members in multiple ways. Of course, everyone's stepped up their digital communications, whether they're using Constant Contact or Chipmonkey. I use Constant Contact, so I don't really know all the other ones, but and apps, of course. I think you talked about apps last week or the week before, and those are ways that associations are looking past the pandemic, and of course, reorganizing their associations with their team, looking at their team and seeing what they can do moving forward.
That's an interesting thing about our members because oftentimes for a lot of our members lost, there's also going to be new members coming in, and how helpful we are during the pandemic is going to play a big role in how we do after this pandemic is over. Because unfortunately, we've had a lot of businesses close, but they leave, especially for the restaurant industry. They open up another opportunity for another restaurateur, another company to go in and become a member and to be a resource to those new members. We're finding is really important now. So really being a servant of the industry more than ever before, I find that's going to be play a big role in how associations will be successful after this.
I totally agree. I mean, we're the New Jersey Restaurant and Hospitality Association, and now people are going to look at how hospitable you are towards them and how much of a value are you to their business. Are you educating them in terms of Serve Safe or whatever programs the different associations have? Are you advocating on their behalf to have some of those restrictions lifted? The cocktails to go has been a big thing across the country, a way for businesses to bring in income that they've ultimately lost due to the restrictions. Some of the restaurants that had wisened up and turned their businesses into mini grocery stores at the beginning of the pandemic. Our association, along with Cisco and Performance Food Groups, some of the bigger companies, did a webinar, get that education component out there so they can see the value in their membership. Of course, advocacy, you can't go wrong with advocacy. I mean, you can. You're never doing enough. You're never going to do enough. You're going to win this one battle, but there's that battle that's right on your back waiting for you to pivot to. So, I mean, you tell me a little more about what Washington is doing. Like New Jersey is always something.
Well, I think a big not challenge, but one of the things that we're really trying to do more of is let the industry know about all of the wins that we're getting for them during this really challenging time. We're in the middle of legislative session right now, and we've been able to, get some wins in unemployment insurance and government relief and a number of other things. And so, what we find is, just sharing about those wins in social media, on our sites, on our podcasts. That oftentimes members don't even realize, oh, they just got me another $25 million of potential relief. How do I do that? And then they call one of our territory managers, and we help guide them through the process then. So I think that's kind of what you have to do. It's really important for associations to, lack of a better term, brag about what you're doing, because you're doing a lot of stuff. You might as well, show the world what you're doing, because otherwise, your members are gonna see other things. They're gonna see all the negative and a lot of the other things. And so, what we found is really just sharing constantly every little thing. We got this win on a small bill that might not have a big impact industry wide, but it helps hotels, or something that might help bowling alleys. All these types of things, every little bit, just document them and share them on social media, because being a cheerleader for the industry is a big deal right now, because there's not much to cheer about, right? So that resonates.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to share a little more of our wins. We accomplish a lot. I don't think we express it as much as we should. And it's okay to brag about yourself. A lot of times people are, you need to be modest. No, you really need to let people know, hey, this is what we're doing. Yes, we're only at 35%, but again, like, we got cocktails to go, or so there was a temporary curfew till 10 p.m. for a couple months there. However, the business can still be open for takeout and delivery. And so build relationships actually with other associations, because you all have the same goal in mind. You need these businesses open, and it's build your village. And once you have your village and within your team, and then on the outside, there's no way your association cannot thrive past this. I think that it is unfortunate that we had a pandemic. I really do. But the fortunate thing is now people know more than ever the value of your association. They know it because you spent we get to say, a whole year. I think, Lex, you started this in this game probably this week or last year this time. I know Washington was the first state to have this hit them. We're about a week out before our restrictions started happening. And there's value. You proved it. Unfortunately, crisis communications and crises is how big industries and associations thrive.
Well, you brought up a really good point there, Shah, about working with other organizations. I would say in the 10 plus years I've been at the association, I think I've seen really good teamwork with other organizations in our state that maybe we didn't have that dialogue with before. And it wasn't for any particular reason. It's just, like DMOs, direct marketing or destination marketing organizations. We've had a great relationship with them over the past several months, because working with us has been integral in terms of getting the word out on the importance of marketing a lot of our local areas that are getting ignored, and vice versa. They're kind of an arm for us in terms of being able to relay the story and how important restaurants and hotels are for local economies. And so, working with local organizations, local chambers, all those things, especially the state association, I've seen the relationships we've had probably as good as they've been. So it's been really encouraging. And as a post-pandemic association, I think it's important to continue that, because we don't know when this is going to happen again. Well, hopefully not for a while. But at the same time, turning lemons into lemonade. This is a chance for us to get some efficiencies where we didn't have before, relationships where we didn't have before, and it's important for organizations to keep those relationships intact after all of this is over.
Absolutely, I think the best way to look at it is your success is my success. And my success is your success. If you're seceding and I'm seceding, we're all seceding. It's not a it's no longer a competition because we all want to see each other survive. And like wearing a mask. I want to see you not sick and you don't want to see me sick. So we wear masks here in New Jersey. So just look at it like that. Your success is my success and my success is your success. And positive energy gives back positive energy.
Well, we've talked about membership. We've talked a little bit about advocacy. Now let's talk about communications. What are some of the things you see sticking after this? I mean, how are, I know for us, this whole situation has forced the hand of how we're viewing communicating with our members. All of a sudden, email is completely important, very important, or even more so than it was before. Webinars. We have a CEO podcast that's been really successful. Members are emailing us back, "Hey, when's the CEO podcast?" And so all of these different things. How do you see the post-pandemic communications of associations changing?
I see there being more podcasts or live Zooms where because you only have one CEO, but you have a whole state in multiple regions. This is a way to bring your CEO to your members on a more frequent basis. This is also opening a line of communication from your member to your CEO. A lot of times people think, oh, if I reach out to the association, I'm not going to get the president. I mean, that's not true. It has never been true for our association. Our president has always given out her cell phone number with no problem, give her a call. However, this is a way you could kind of touch her without touching her and immediately, hey, when are you going to fight for the tip wage? And she can respond in that moment during that call or during that Zoom meeting. I don't see those going away. I see it maybe being hybrid, half virtual and half live. That way you can cover the entire state at one time, especially I know we talked about advocacy, but when you talk about kitchen cabinet, sometimes you'll have a legislative meeting. There's a legislator there, and I might not be able to make it. So now I have the opportunity to go on my phone and still take part in that. And I don't see that feature going away ever or anytime soon, unless there's some kind of digital pandemic. I don't see that going away.
Well, one of the things I've seen also change is the way people communicate. All of a sudden, you and I are talking about what type of camera are you going to use, what type of webcam are you going to use, what type of microphone is that. As a gadget guy, I love this stuff. So this was like right in my sweet spot. And so, we were the first on it. And some of these things we already had, and some of these things we have to repurpose, like some old DSLR I've had to repurpose into being a webcam, and some of the old microphones that we've had. So that's the other thing. And plus this podcast that we're doing now, in many ways, it was a result of this pandemic because, we've got to sharpen our arrows in terms of this type of communications. How do you see the vehicles change, and what type of impact is this going to have?
I think that associations are going to they now see the value in spending a couple dollars on a camera or a couple dollars on a microphone or lighting. I see that happening. I mean, everyone was talking about podcasts. In fact, when the pandemic happened, we had a conference coming, and podcasting was going to be a subject at that conference. Unfortunately, it was canceled, and then everyone figured out, hey, let's go to YouTube or let's call someone like Lex and find out, hey, how do we make this happen? So I think that some of the smaller associations whose budget wasn't as lavish as yours, Lex, see the value in spending the money on a camera or the little webcam. I think last week or the week before I was talking to Adam about a Logitech. It's only a couple $100, and I don't mean to use only a couple $100. A couple $100 is some people's membership dues, but that the value, it pays for itself. Something like that pays for itself, especially if that's going to be one of your main focal points in communicating with your members.
And I've noticed an upgrade in general on things like sound, things like video. All of a sudden, I'm talking to people who would not care what type of microphone they're using. You know that they were not tech savvy, they remain not tech savvy. But if they're going to talk to a legislator, if they're going to talk to members, they want to make sure there's no echo in the room when they're talking on the on the webinar. And so, I'm working with members of my team and occasionally folks from other parts of the country who ask, hey, what do we need to do to make our audio really, really good? And the thing is, it's allowing us to practice these best practices in a way that's going to help organizations in the long term. It's a good idea that you have good audio moving forward anyway, regardless of whether or not you have a virtual legislative session or not, because you're going to have enough member meetings, you're going to have all these things, and you always want to put your best foot forward. So things like a great camera, great lighting, and a microphone are essential. And I'm seeing more and more associations finally figure that out.
Absolutely. It's something that I think everyone needs to figure out. How would you present yourself if you were live? You would get up, do your hair, put makeup on, make sure when you are in a light, you're seen as your best. This is the same thing. Unfortunately, it's just digital. This is the way we have to move forward. So you want to use the best equipment at a reasonable price. Whatever's your price point is fine. There's something available in everyone's price point. And I think that's the misconception that people often have. It's like, oh, I can't, it's not in my budget. But there are things that you might have brought $1 million worth of paper. Well, now you don't need that much paper because your main job is behind a camera. So the same amount that you would pay on maybe 4 cases of paper, you can spend a few dollars on a good webcam. It doesn't have to be some of the fancier cameras that some of us have. It could be the webcam. And there's actually now some packages available because everyone wants to be a podcaster. Every teen wants to be a podcaster. And those packages, they're very reasonably priced. And I would encourage people to look into them. Also, when you're going to have a guest, you want your guest to be seen in the best light. So you may want to send them best practices on Zoom. Whenever we're having a webinar, we send those individuals that are joining as a panelist how to fix your light. Maybe not do a virtual background if you're not familiar with a virtual background. Clean up. You might want to clean up the area behind you. And like you said, sound is very, very important. Very, very important. The sounds and the way you appear to the person on the other side of the computer is very important. They go hand in hand. But it's like showing up to an interview. You show up to an interview, you look pretty dapper, you go the extra mile. You will want to do that, especially if you're because now people are having member meetings on Zoom.
That's right. You're recruiting members.
You want to show up, Yeah. They want to see the value in what they're purchasing, and they're purchasing you over the other side of the computer, believe it or not.
And that's a good point. A lot of associations are jettisoning their print publications. Like I know we stopped our print publication. I think we went from 10 magazines a year to just 1, our annual buyer's guide. And I know many associations are removing that. I mean, each one of those magazines was several $1,000s of expenses on full color printing and then mailing, and not to mention the amount of time the staff spent on getting those stories done and all of that stuff. That is kind of gone now. And so how do you reallocate the resources and get the most out of that reinvestment in something that is the next level of communications to your members? And the way I view it are online communications such as webinars and podcasts, email marketing, and web presence. and I guess to a degree also social media, but social media is there to kind of as garnishment, if you will. It's a garnishments to the meal. But your essentials, you got to have a good website. For folks who have websites, maybe this is the time to introduce your members only resource, right? Start doing some online courses, some of those types of things, and then start integrating some of these podcasts and make it exclusive to members only. And I think people are understanding the value of members only now. Before, I think it was also kind of a bit ethereal, like why don't we make it everything public so that we can maximize our reach? But I think now there's enough value there, whether it's templates, whether it's webinars, whether it's online courses, or whether it's legal memos, that members understand. Okay, well, if I want to save $500 instead of hiring a lawyer, I want to download this legal document from my state association that gives guidance on how I handle tip pooling, for example. Well, okay, I'm going to give my username, I'm going to give my email address and password for that, and we found that hasn't been a problem.
Absolutely. Once someone sees the value in you, and when I say you, I mean your association, they're not going to have a problem handing over their credit card number to continue their membership each month or each year, however you bill your members. You have to provide a value. My membership person, I just love her. She's constantly looking for ways to provide a value to our members. And I mean, I think she eats, sleeps, and breathes ways in which she can bring to the team a way to provide a value to our members. That's one of the things that I have an admiration for her for and respect.
Now, advocacy is something you work on at New Jersey. Sean, your new role there. How do you see advocacy changing? I mean, what are some of the things that you're seeing that you could see stick around, or you see being a permanent impact after with the post-pandemic association?
It's easier to get a meeting with a local, when I say local, state legislator, one of our state senators or our assemblyman or the whole caucus. I mean, it fascinates me how easy it is. And once you get one senator to come on and speak with you, they suddenly all want the opportunity to come and speak to your membership. It's amazing. Whereas before it would be a little difficult because you're trying to find ways in which they have time and you have time to either be in their local office or at the Capitol. And so advocacy has been able to be amazing during this time. We've had meetings probably with every federal delegate as well via Zoom with our members. We have our 2 senators and we have 12 House of Representatives, and each of them have been on to speak with our members. And believe it or not, they all show up for those more than they show up for our webinars. So the numbers are out of control when we're speaking to one of our congressional members.
Well, one of the things I have noticed is legislators, lawmakers seem to be really, more than ever, really emphasizing local, right? Mm-hmm. If you have your constituents, let's say your state association, the largest county in your state, you have a contingency of members who are gathering together to talk about particular issues. It seems like they're really down with participating in those types of calls, and they're willing to accept some difficult questions.
Absolutely. I think that's because, again, everyone at this time, no one had, when you have restrictions in place, people have time. They have time to think about whether you are worth my time, whether you are working for me as my congressional delegate. Are you advocating on are you acting in my best interest in Trenton? Are you acting in my business's best interest in Washington? People are looking at this, and when it's time for people to go to the polls, they're thinking about how you treated them during this pandemic. The same thing when they're looking at whether or not they want to be a member of yours. They're looking at you and how you treated them during the pandemic? Were you there? Did you answer my phone calls? Did you answer my email? Did you find out enough information about PPP? Did you push the governor for grants, or to lift those restrictions, or to give more tax breaks? Like we have now a tax break on a state level. PPP is not taxable, and these are things that people are looking at because they're looking at growing their business and staying afloat. And did you help them get to the other side? And I could confidently say most of the associations across the country, restaurant and hospitality ones that I'm familiar with, have helped their members get to the other side.
Yeah. Well, moving on from advocacy now to the last piece. We've talked about membership, we've talked about communications, we've talked about advocacy. Not just the logistics of being an association, it's the administrative parts, office space, remote working, a lot of those things. We've learned a lot of things, we've gotten some valuable lessons throughout this process. I still don't know what, for us, we'll probably still, encourage people to work from home probably all the way through summer. I don't know about your office, but we have our own building that that can fit 50, 60 people, and I would say there's 10 of us at the most on any given day. Sometimes less than that, usually less than that, and so I'm really curious how that changes the dynamic of one. How much people spend on office space. Is that going to factor into their leases? How does that factor into equipment? Because you're not going to spend office space, but you're going to need to upgrade your computers because you're going to probably want at least 8 or 16 gigabytes of RAM, and you're going to want to invest on fiber or hire a faster internet or fast internet at home and subsidize your workers in order to do that, to be able to support that. So I see a lot of changes coming down.
So so far our team is being subsidized on our cell phone bills because we do take calls at home. We alternate the phone system. You still can get a live person today if you were to call our offices. Well, actually, if you call right now, you will not. We're closed at 4:30. For the future, we will be working from home every Friday. That's permanent now. That's now in our employee handbook. We go into the office Tuesdays and Wednesdays because we have a much smaller team than a lot of the other states. So our entire team has their own office. There's no reason for us to be in the same space. So pretty much we do go into the office to do some administrative things that we may need to do. It's easier to get on a server there. Welcome kits that we send out to our new members, mail out ServSafe books, things like that. We go into the office 2 days a week for. I don't know when we're going back into the office full time. We haven't that there has not been a determination for that. But Fridays, lucky for us, is permanently work from home day.
Right. Well, hopefully we can do that. So that'll be great. So kind of closing it out, any final thoughts, Shaw, on what associations need to embrace after this is all over in order to be successful?
Your digital platforms, technology. It's a little work, but it's worth it in the end.
Yeah. And then for me, I guess it's always embrace the change. I think that, there's whenever there's challenges like this, there's always opportunity. History shows this such. And so really, for every member that's closed, there will be a member that's open. And I think it's important for people to focus on that. I know it's difficult right now for a lot of folks and a lot of organizations, but the bottom line is, if this pandemic is showing us anything, is that businesses need their interests represented in the state capitals, in the federal government, and they need to know about this stuff because they don't have the time to do all this stuff themselves. And they don't have the inside track in terms of accessing some of these lawmakers and accessing some of these information and resources. We are there as an association to curate that for them. And by curating all this information, we're saving members hundreds of hours of work. And so I'm saying, my point of view is, I think the Post-Pandemic Association is bright. And I think for those associations that learn that lesson, I think that it could be a golden age potentially.
I couldn't agree. The value is your team. People are paying for your team.
Yep. All right. Well, that said, thank you so much, Shah, for joining today, and thank you for your insights, and thank you for listening in, everybody. And we'll talk again next week.
Thank you, Lex.